Stop scrolling for just a moment, because what you are about to hear is the kind of story that, on the surface, looks like another routine royal commentary cycle. A photograph of a young princess, a sad birthday, a wistful father in California. But underneath it, something far more revealing has been happening this week. A pattern of small, almost invisible signals is coming from inside Buckingham Palace, from inside Highgrove, and from inside the very newspapers that have spent years protecting Prince Harry. By the end of the next several minutes, you will understand exactly why the past 48 hours have produced more genuinely consequential royal moments than the previous 2 months combined, and why, taken together, they form a picture of the Sussex situation that even the most loyal supporters can no longer easily ignore. Stay with me, because this story moves through 3 distinct chapters tonight. The Princess Charlotte birthday photograph and what it triggered in Montecito, the quiet, almost ceremonial removal of a wedding photograph from the most personal corner of King Charles's private home, and the surreal, perhaps even slightly desperate, magazine tribute that Prince Harry has just published for one of the most beloved figures in British public life. 3 small moments, 3 different rooms, 1 unmistakable conclusion. The official Sussex narrative is unraveling in real time, and the cracks are now visible from every angle. Picture the first scene. London, late spring 2026. Catherine, Princess of Wales, releases an official photograph of her daughter, Princess Charlotte, on her 11th birthday. The image is, by every account, lovely, a young royal smiling, surrounded by the gentle confidence of a childhood that is genuinely loved, genuinely protected, and genuinely full of family. It is the kind of picture that British and Commonwealth audiences have come to expect from the Wales household: quiet, dignified, warm, and untouched by the manufactured drama that defines too much of contemporary celebrity culture. According to reporting from the Daily Mail's Richard Eden, citing friends close to Prince Harry, that single image landed in California with the force of a small earthquake. A friend of the Duke of Sussex told Eden that Harry desperately wishes his own children, Prince Archie, who turned 7 yesterday, and Princess Lilibet, who is 4, could enjoy the same sort of childhood as their cousins, Princess Charlotte, Prince George, and Prince Louis. Read that quote carefully. Sit with it, because it is the closest thing we have ever seen to a public admission from Harry's own circle that the choice he made in 2020 has cost his children something profound, something he can no longer pretend has been replaced by anything equivalent in California. Archie and Lilibet are having a lovely time, the friend continued, but Harry is very sad that they are missing out on life with the rest of their family. During his return visit to Britain last September, the friend added, Harry told them that he and Meghan plan to educate their children in this country, meaning the United Kingdom. Harry feels his children are missing out on the extensive family network that their cousins are enjoying, the friend said, referring to the children of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, all of whom currently attend the same private school and share the same rhythm of an English childhood that Harry himself once enjoyed. Pause for a moment and consider the structural significance of that briefing, because what you are looking at is not a casual remark. It is a calculated leak. The Sussex public relations machine, Montecito, has decided, quite deliberately, to put this thought into circulation. Because Prince Harry needs the public to know that he still wants to come home. He still wants his children to experience an English education. He still wants, in his own carefully managed way, to maintain the option of a future on this side of the Atlantic. But here is the problem. The same friend, in the same briefing, was forced to concede the actual heart of the matter. Harry, the friend admitted, may have a challenge selling his plan to Meghan. The Duchess, the friend explained, is set to consider sending children to boarding school. Barbaric. Read that word again, barbaric. It is the most loaded, most aggressive single word a parent could possibly use to describe an educational tradition in which her own husband, and centuries of his ancestors, were raised. Now consider what that single word actually means in the context of a royal briefing dropped to the Daily Mail. It is quite clearly a preemptive shot fired across the bows of the Wales household, because Prince George, the eldest son of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, is widely expected to begin his own boarding school education in September. The Sussex publicity team chose, in a single carefully phrased sentence, to characterize that decision before it has even been formally announced as barbaric. In other words, to suggest that the future king of the United Kingdom and his wife are doing something cruel by sending their son to a traditional English boarding school. That is not a private opinion. That is not a respectful disagreement between sisters-in-law. That is a calculated, weaponized public attack on the parenting choices of the future king, released through anonymous friends, filtered through a sympathetic columnist, and dressed up in the soft language of personal preference, but landing with absolute clarity as a deliberate insult. And there is something else worth pausing on here. Something goes deeper than a single word in a single newspaper article. Over many years, the British public has watched the Wales household navigate parenting under conditions of extraordinary public scrutiny with a quiet, almost monastic discipline. Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William have not lectured the country about modern parenting. They have not staged elaborate magazine spreads about their personal philosophies of childhood. They have not given moralizing interviews about the right way to raise the next generation. They have simply gotten on with it. They have raised 3 children whose public appearances suggest happy, secure, and well-loved young people, fully embedded in a wider British family network of cousins, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. That is parenting by demonstration, not by sermon. The Sussex briefing strategy, by contrast, depends almost entirely on telling the world how it should feel, then attacking anyone who feels differently. Meghan, by every available account, has spent considerable energy positioning herself as the modern voice of the right way to do everything, the right way to launch a brand, the right way to write a memoir, the right way to produce a Netflix documentary, the right way to mother, and, apparently, the right way to think about education. The problem with that strategy is that the British public, with its long memory and instinctive suspicion of self-appointed moral instructors, has simply stopped listening. They have, with the patient civic intelligence that defines the country, watched the Sussex sermons, observed the Sussex behavior underlying them, and quietly drawn their own conclusions. Stay with me, because the briefing strategy itself contains a contradiction so obvious that it should embarrass the Sussex public relations team. Within the same article, Prince Harry is portrayed as desperately wishing his children could enjoy the kind of British family life their cousins do, while his wife is portrayed as being so philosophically opposed to that very tradition that she calls it barbaric. Those are not 2 compatible positions. Those are not 2 parents working through a difference. Those are 2 fundamentally incompatible visions of childhood, dropped into a single newspaper article, with the public left to draw the obvious conclusion: they are not on the same page. They are not even reading the same book. And there is something even more significant beneath the surface of this story. The Daily Mail framing suggests that Prince Harry mentioned his plans to educate the children in Britain to his own father, King Charles, when they met for tea at Clarence House last September. The implication, quietly but unmistakably, is that the king is somehow delighted by the prospect, that this is a story of warming family relations, that the monarchy is gently and generously opening the door to the prodigal son's return. That implication, as anyone who has been following royal coverage closely understands, simply does not survive a moment of genuine scrutiny. The king has not, by any credible account, been delighted by anything coming out of Montecito for quite some time. By every available indication, King Charles has drawn a careful, dignified, almost sorrowful line around his relationship with his younger son. And that line has now been made physically visible at his most personal home in the country. Stay close, because this is where the second chapter of tonight's story unfolds, and in many ways, it is the most quietly devastating moment of the week. Highgrove, the king's private retreat in Gloucestershire, the home he loves more than almost any other property in his estate. A place defined by gardens, personal touches, and the careful arrangement of family photographs that, for any private person, mark the most intimate corners of a home. Lydia Millen, the lifestyle influencer, photographed a small wooden table in one of those rooms several years ago. On that table, prominently displayed, was a wedding photograph from May 2018, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle smiling on their wedding day, occupying a place of honor in the king's most personal space. That photograph is gone. Royal photographer Chris Jackson, who was at Highgrove this week to host an event, posted images of the same room on his Instagram. The wooden table is still there. The arrangement of frames is still there. But the wedding photograph has been quietly, carefully, and deliberately removed. In its place are two images, one showing King Charles shoulder to shoulder with both of his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, from earlier, simpler years, and another showing King Charles holding his grandson, Prince Louis, the youngest of the Wales children, the grandson he sees regularly, the grandson who is part of his life. Hello. Magazine, ever the soft hand in royal coverage, gently suggested that Charles's team may have simply chosen to display the wedding image elsewhere. Pull the other one. This is not a coincidence. This is not a casual rearrangement. This is symbolism in its purest, most calculated, and most deeply considered form. The late Queen Elizabeth II understood symbolism, and King Charles understands it too. Every photograph in a royal home is a deliberate statement about who is family, who is welcome, and who is no longer present in the daily emotional life of the monarch. When the late Queen delivered her Christmas message in 2019 and the Sussexes noticed that a particular family photograph had not been placed on her table, that single quiet decision became, by their own accounts, one of the final triggers for their departure from the institution. They understood. They knew exactly what it meant. So they cannot now, in 2026, pretend that the disappearance of their wedding photograph from the king's private retreat is anything other than what it is, a clear, deliberate, almost ceremonial gesture of distance. A father quietly and sorrowfully removing the image of a wedding day that, in retrospect, did not produce the family outcome anyone had hoped for. The king is not delighted by Prince Harry's vague conversations about returning the children to a British education. The king is grieving. King Charles is reconfiguring his daily emotional life to accommodate the reality that his younger son is, for the foreseeable future, no longer a part of it. That is what the missing photograph means. And the Sussex briefing strategy, the carefully placed Daily Mail article, the suggestion that the king is delighted by talk of British schooling, cannot survive contact with this single piece of physical evidence. The wedding photograph is gone. The king has spoken. He has spoken without saying a word, and every royal commentator who has been paying attention this week has heard him perfectly. Pause for a moment on the deeper meaning of that photograph's removal, because what makes it so devastating is not simply the fact that a frame was moved from a table. What makes it devastating is the choice of which photographs replaced it. King Charles did not leave the table empty. He did not simply remove the wedding image and create a gap. He carefully and deliberately replaced it with two specific images that send their own message. The first is an older photograph showing King Charles with both of his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, shoulder to shoulder from a time before the rupture. That image is, in many ways, an act of paternal grief. A father who still loves his son. A father who still mourns the family that once was. A father who is willing to keep an older, simpler photograph of all of them together, even now. That is a heartbreaking gesture, and it should be read with the tenderness it deserves. The second image, however, is the operational one. King Charles holding Prince Louis, the youngest of the Wales children, the grandson he sees regularly, the grandson who is part of his daily emotional life. By placing that photograph in the prime spot once occupied by the Sussex wedding image, the king is not simply making a statement about who is no longer present. He is making a statement about who is filling that space instead. Prince Louis has stepped into the place that was once occupied, in the king's most personal home, by the Sussex wedding day. That is not subtle. That is not ambiguous. That is the King of the United Kingdom quietly, gently, and almost mournfully reordering his emotional household to reflect the new shape of his family. And here is what makes that gesture even more poignant when you sit with it. King Charles is, by every account, a man who feels things deeply. He grieved publicly for his mother. He grieved privately for the years of estrangement from his younger son. He has approached every difficult moment of his reign with the kind of slow, deliberate emotional honesty that is, in its own way, deeply moving. The decision to remove the wedding photograph was almost certainly not taken lightly. It was almost certainly preceded by months, perhaps years, of internal hesitation, hope, and waiting to see whether reconciliation might still be possible. The fact that it has happened now, in the spring of 2026, suggests that the king has reached a point of acceptance. The waiting is over. The hoping has, for now at least, been gently set aside, and the daily emotional architecture of his most personal home has been quietly redesigned around the family members who are actually present in his life. Stay with me, because the third chapter of tonight's story is, in some ways, the most quietly poignant of all. This week, the great British naturalist Sir David Attenborough. Sir David Attenborough turned 100 years old this week. A full century. A genuine national treasure. A man who has narrated the natural world for multiple generations of British and global audiences, the most beloved and universally respected broadcasting figure in modern British public life. By every account, his preference for this milestone was a relatively low-key family celebration, the kind of dignified and modest occasion that has defined his entire public life. He was famously close to the late Queen Elizabeth II. They shared a long, deeply respectful relationship. The thought that the late Queen did not live to see Sir David Attenborough's 100th birthday, that she would not be there to send the famous letter traditionally sent to every centenarian in the realm, is, frankly, one of the saddest small notes of this birthday week. But here is what arrived from Montecito. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, published a tribute to Sir David Attenborough in Time magazine. Read that twice. The Duke of Sussex, a man whose approval rating reportedly sits around 30% in the United Kingdom, a man who has spent the past several years engaged in increasingly bitter public conflicts with his family, has decided, completely without prompting and without any obvious connection to Sir David's actual relationship with the British royal family, to publish a glossy, carefully composed magazine tribute to a man whose closest royal connections have always been to the late Queen Elizabeth II. And King Charles, not to him. But why this tribute? Why this magazine? Why this moment? The answer, when you look at it honestly, is uncomfortable. Because the tribute, beautifully written though it appears, does not actually sound like Prince Harry. Read the opening line. For almost anyone who grew up in the United Kingdom, Sir David Attenborough is more than a broadcaster. He is a secular saint. He is an institutional pillar, as essential to the national fabric as a cup of tea. His almost whispers have been the soft soundtrack of home, a shared experience that turned the weekend nature documentary into a national ritual. That is lovely prose. Genuinely lovely. But ask yourself honestly, does that prose sound like the man who recorded the audiobook version of Spare? Does that tone match the voice we have heard in every interview, documentary, and commercial appearance Prince Harry has made over the past decade? Or does it sound more like something written by a professional ghostwriter? Or perhaps by an artificial intelligence assistant given a brief and a bullet point list of phrases to include? Listen to the cadence. He is the man who showed you the world through a uniquely spectacular lens. He has earned the world's trust by simply showing us that our environment is worth appreciating. He did not demand our attention, but drew us in with the wonder of nature all the same. In Sir David's approach, we find a vital lesson for our time. That wonder is a powerful precursor to protection, reminding us that we may only care for a world we have first learned to truly value. That is not the voice of Prince Harry. That is the voice of a public relations consultant. The biggest compliment any reader can give a piece of writing is, "It sounded just like you. I could hear your voice on the page." The Time magazine tribute, however well crafted, fails that single most important test of authentic prose. It does not sound like the man who supposedly wrote it. And in a media environment where authenticity has become the single most valuable currency a public figure can possess, that failure is genuinely revealing. The truly sad part of this situation is that Prince Harry could have, with the smallest amount of personal effort, written something genuine. A short, heartfelt note in his own voice about his memories of watching Sir David Attenborough's documentaries with his late mother. A real story about how that voice shaped his childhood understanding of the natural world. Anything that sounded like a human being instead of a press release. Sir David Attenborough did not need a glossy magazine spread from a Sussex public relations operation. He needed nothing of the sort. In the end, the tribute was not for him. The tribute was for Prince Harry. There is also something worth noting about the timing. The royal family has, over many decades, maintained a long, mutual, and deeply respectful relationship with Sir David Attenborough. King Charles, who has spent most of his adult life championing environmental causes that were dismissed as eccentric long before the world caught up with his thinking, has a genuinely substantive friendship with Sir David that extends across both professional and personal dimensions. Prince William, who founded the Earthshot Prize specifically to celebrate the kind of environmental innovation Sir David has spent his career documenting, has a professional relationship with him built on years of shared purpose. These are real, earned, and demonstrated relationships. They were not constructed in a public relations office last week to coincide with a glossy magazine deadline. Prince Harry's relationship with Sir David Attenborough is, by every available account, considerably less developed. There is, of course, the now famous photograph from the Netflix The Crown event some years ago, where Sir David was photographed alongside King Charles, Prince William, and Prince Harry. But that image, taken at a single shared event, does not constitute the kind of long, layered relationship that the Time magazine tribute attempts to imply. The tribute reads, in its insistence on the deepest possible connection to Sir David, almost like a man auditioning for a relationship he does not actually have. And in the context of a birthday week where Sir David Attenborough's authentic friendships with the rest of the royal family are already well documented, the audition becomes sadly transparent. The late Queen Elizabeth II, who would have sent Sir David Attenborough his 100th birthday letter had she lived, would have sent it with the warm, settled understanding of two figures who had walked through several decades of national life side by side. She would not have needed a glossy magazine column to demonstrate the depth of her regard. She would have done what she did so brilliantly throughout her reign, make a small, quiet, dignified gesture that said everything without saying anything at all. The contrast with Prince Harry's noisy, magazine-driven approach to his own tribute could not be sharper. And it tells you, in the most painful way, exactly what has been lost in the modern Sussex approach to public relationships. Stay close, because there is one more dimension to this week worth examining, and it brings us back to the contrast running underneath every single moment of this story. This week, Prince William was photographed at a football match, cheering, reacting visibly and openly, completely caught up in the emotion of watching his beloved Aston Villa play. There was, predictably, some commentary in certain corners of the press suggesting that this kind of public emotion was somehow undignified, that a future king should be more contained, more restrained, and more careful with the public theater of his feelings. That commentary, frankly, is wildly out of step with what the British public actually wants from its monarchy in the 21st century. Remember the late Queen Elizabeth II watching her horses race at Ascot, the unmistakable joy on her face, the binoculars raised, the genuine human emotion of a woman who loved what she was watching. Nobody suggested that the Queen's joy at a horse race undermined the dignity of the crown. On the contrary, it was one of the moments that made her most beloved. It humanized her. It connected her to the millions of ordinary British people who shared her love of horses, racing, and the simple pleasures of a good day at the track. Prince William cheering for Aston Villa is doing exactly the same thing his grandmother did. He is showing the British public that the future king is a man with real feelings about real things that real people care about. In a single emotional reaction, he is demonstrating that the monarchy he will inherit will be rooted in genuine human connection, not artificial palace stiffness. That is not a failure of dignity. That is the very essence of why a modern monarchy survives. It survives because, somewhere beneath all the ceremony, it remains recognizably, lovably, and undeniably human. And here is the contrast with the Sussex situation that truly matters. Prince William cheers at a football match and reaches the British public on the level they want to be reached. Meanwhile, Prince Harry publishes a tribute that sounds as though it was written by an algorithm, in a magazine with which he has no obvious relationship, about a man whose royal connections lie elsewhere. One of these is a future king connecting with his country. The other is a former working royal trying, with increasingly visible desperation, to find an angle that might generate a positive headline cycle in an international media landscape that has, in cold polling terms, largely moved on. The numbers themselves tell the entire story. Recent YouGov polling on royal popularity is genuinely staggering. The late Queen Elizabeth II sits at 81% positive, Princess Diana at 77%, Prince William at 76%, Catherine, Princess of Wales at 75%, and Princess Anne at 70%. King Charles III stands at 60%, despite navigating enormous personal and institutional challenges, while Prince Edward sits at 53%. Then comes the gap. Prince Harry stands at 30%, Meghan Markle at 20%, and Prince Andrew occupies his own category of catastrophic public unpopularity at just 3%. These are not subtle differences. These are not statistical wobbles. These are generational, structural, almost civilizational gaps in public regard. They tell the British public a very clear story about which members of the royal family are doing the work that earns goodwill and which members are not. 8 out of 10 British people view Meghan Markle negatively. 7 out of 10 view Prince Harry negatively. That is the cold, immovable reality sitting beneath every glossy magazine tribute, every leaked Daily Mail briefing about future schooling plans, and every carefully managed public relations strategy emerging from Montecito. The country has made up its mind. The country has, with patient, dignified, almost mournful clarity, said no. There is another royal story this week that deserves brief mention because it places the Sussex situation in even sharper context. Prince Andrew, the king's brother, was reportedly involved in a frightening incident this week in Suffolk, during which a man was arrested and charged in connection with allegedly threatening behavior near him. The story, on its own terms, is genuinely concerning. Nobody, regardless of their views on Prince Andrew's past conduct, wants to see a member of the royal family physically threatened on British streets. But the speed with which sources close to Prince Andrew reportedly briefed the Daily Telegraph, demanding that his publicly funded security be reviewed and reinstated, has triggered a reaction from the British public that is worth understanding. Because the British public, fairly or unfairly, does not currently have a great deal of patience for senior royals who walked away from public service obligations and now expect publicly funded protection arrangements. Anyway, the link between Prince Andrew's situation and the Sussex situation is not, of course, identical. The circumstances are different. The reasons are different. The reasons for stepping back are different. The legal and reputational dimensions are different. But the underlying public mood, the patience the British people are willing to extend to royals who want to enjoy the benefits of the institution without performing its responsibilities, is now under considerable strain. Prince Andrew sits at a 3% approval rating, Prince Harry at 30%, and Meghan Markle at 20%. Whatever individual sympathy the British public might still extend to these figures during moments of genuine personal hardship is now competing against a much broader and far harsher public sentiment. The mood that says quite plainly, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot demand the protections of an institution you walked away from. You cannot demand the deference of a country whose tabloids you have spent years suing. You cannot demand the warmth of a family whose private lives you have publicly dissected. That is the harder, colder reality sitting beneath this week's small signals. The British public has reached a point of patient, almost regretful exhaustion with royals who want institutional benefits without institutional service. And the Sussex situation, the missing wedding photograph, the leaked Daily Mail briefing, the Time magazine tribute that does not quite ring true, is now operating against that broader public mood. Every small move emerging from Montecito no longer lands in a sympathetic news cycle, but in a country that is slowly, and without rancor, simply moving on. So where does that leave us tonight? It leaves us with 3 small, seemingly unconnected moments that, taken together, paint a complete picture of the Sussex situation in the spring of 2026. A Daily Mail briefing that exposes a profound fault line between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle over their children's future. A missing wedding photograph at Highgrove that speaks louder than any palace press release. And a Time magazine tribute that fails the simplest test of authenticity. The tribute lacks an authentic personal voice. These are not isolated stories. They are the same story told from 3 different angles. And the story they tell is this: the Sussex public project has reached its natural point of exhaustion. The carefully constructed mythology of post-royal life is no longer generating the cultural traction it once did. The institution that Prince Harry walked away from is now slowly and unmistakably withdrawing from him in return. And the audience he left it for, the American mass market, has, by nearly every available measure, lost interest. What comes next is, in many ways, the most fascinating question in modern royal commentary. Does Prince Harry continue chasing the relevance he can no longer organically generate? Does Meghan Markle continue rejecting the kind of British family life that Prince Harry, according to his own briefings, still seems to long for his children to experience? Does King Charles III continue to gently, quietly, and almost gracefully reduce the visible presence of the Sussex chapter from his most personal spaces? And does the British public, with its long, patient, almost geological sense of generational time, continue drifting further away from the couple who attempted to use a 1,000-year-old institution as a personal launchpad, only to find themselves gently placed on the far side of the Atlantic with the exit doors slowly closing behind them? These questions will shape royal commentary for years to come. And every small, seemingly insignificant signal, every photograph moved, every magazine tribute commissioned, every Daily Mail briefing about boarding schools, may eventually be understood as part of the slow, dignified, almost ceremonial answer the institution has been giving all along. The institution always wins. The institution always endures. The institution always finds a way to gently let go of the people who tried to outgrow it. The institution rewrites its story while quietly preserving the story itself for the next generation. Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William represent the future of the crown. Princess Charlotte, Prince George, and Prince Louis are the children who will carry it forward. Princess Anne remains the steady moral conscience of the senior generation. And then there is King Charles III, the dignified, increasingly grandfatherly figure presiding over a family that, despite every wave of public turbulence, somehow appears to be knitting itself back together with the absent threads removed. That is the picture emerging in the spring of 2026, and every small signal this week seems to confirm it. The wedding photograph is gone from the table at Highgrove. The Daily Mail briefing has exposed a deep fracture inside the Montecito household. The Time magazine tribute has revealed just how heavily the Sussex public relations operation now depends on prose that barely even sounds like the voice of its own subject. These are not victories for the British monarchy. They are something quieter, more mournful, and almost tender, the confirmation of a chapter slowly coming to a close. A chapter that began with a fairy tale wedding at St. George's Chapel in May 2018, and that, 8 years later, appears to be ending with a missing photograph, a leaked briefing, and a tribute that sounds as though it may have been written by a machine. Stay with this story, because the next chapter, the chapter in which Prince Harry's wishes for his children's British education collide with Meghan Markle's belief that boarding school is barbaric, is only just beginning to unfold. And the consequences of that collision, once it fully breaks into the open, may define royal headlines on both sides of the Atlantic for years to come. The institution endures. The Sussex experiment continues to drift. And the wedding photograph has, quite simply, left the room. There is one final thought worth sitting with as this video comes to a close. One final thought is worth reflecting on tonight. The tradition of the British monarchy has always rested upon a single, almost invisible foundation: the patient, daily, and often unglamorous performance of duty by people who could, if they wished, have chosen entirely different lives. Catherine, Princess of Wales, did not have to marry into this life. She chose to. Princess Anne did not have to spend 6 decades carrying out more public engagements than almost any other royal in modern history. She chose to. King Charles III did not have to spend 70 years preparing for a role he only recently stepped into. He chose to. Even the late Queen Elizabeth II, faced with a young marriage and a new family in 1952, did not have to dedicate her entire adult life to the patient discipline of constitutional monarchy. She chose to. That principle, duty freely accepted by choice, is what gives the institution its moral weight. It is what makes the British public willing to fund it, defend it, and stand beside it through generations of cultural change. The Sussex story, in its current trajectory, represents the inverse of that principle. It is the story of two people who accepted the role, then stepped away from the duty while still attempting to retain the privileges. That imbalance between privilege accepted and obligation rejected is what much of the British public can no longer extend goodwill toward. Not because the public is unfeeling and not because it lacks sympathy, but because the public understands, with a kind of instinctive wisdom deeper than any newspaper poll, that an institution built upon duty cannot survive if duty itself becomes optional. And that, in the end, is the real story beneath every small signal this week. The wedding photograph at Highgrove was not removed in anger. It was removed in sorrow. The Daily Mail briefing was not leaked in malice. It emerged from confusion and longing. The Time magazine tribute was not published in cynicism. It was published in hope. It was published in the desperation of a man who needs the world to keep noticing him. None of these are the actions of a confident, settled, or genuinely happy household. They are the actions of a household experiencing a slow, dignified crisis. And the British public, watching from across the Atlantic, has seen enough to draw what many believe is the obvious conclusion. The fairy tale is over. The institution endures. And the slow, careful, almost ceremonial closing of that chapter is now visible in every photograph that has been moved, every briefing that has been leaked, and every tribute written by someone other than the man whose name appears at the top of the page. The wedding photograph has left the room. The room itself remains. And the story of the British monarchy, as always, continues forward without stumbling into the next chapter, the next generation, the next quiet act in the longest constitutional drama of the modern world. For viewers watching tonight, here is the final question worth reflecting on. Watch the next several months very carefully. Watch which photographs reappear on which tables, and which do not. Watch which family members are seen together at public events, and which are quietly absent. Watch which children are photographed at certain schools, and which are kept entirely outside the frame. Watch which magazine tributes are published in which voices, and ask yourself each time whether the prose genuinely sounds like the person whose name appears on it. The story of the modern monarchy will be told through those small signals far more honestly than through any official statement. And the Sussex chapter, the chapter now visibly approaching its quiet, almost mournful conclusion, will likely be remembered not for one dramatic announcement, but for the slow accumulation of small, deliberate and painfully eloquent gestures. The institution speaks softly. The institution speaks through symbols. And this week, the institution spoke by removing a single photograph from a single table in a single Gloucestershire home. And the world paying close attention heard exactly what it needed to hear.